Welcome back, guys. This is Lindsay with Garage Gym Reviews. I love Sole treadmills. I, in fact, have the Sole S90 in my garage. I use it multiple times a week, as well as my family members using it. One of my favorite treadmills to run on is the Sole F85. I think for the price point, I think the features that it have, I really like the Sole brand. So I was really excited when we got this Sole ST90 into the warehouse. I've been looking at it for a while. I love its slatted belt design. I wanted to see if it held up to the price point at which it's stated at. And while I do like running on this treadmill, there are a few callouts that I do have to it. I don't think it should turn anybody off to buying it, but there are a few things you should definitely know going into it before you purchase this. But first, make sure you're subscribed to our channel. Also, if you want to go ahead and purchase this, we've placed a link below the like button. It does give us a small commission when you purchase from that link, but it doesn't cost you anything extra. And Sole did send this to us, but as you will see, I do have a couple callouts to it that might steer you clear from buying it. But for the right person, I do think this is a really good treadmill. One of the first things I went ahead and did when we got this treadmill was connected the app to the treadmill. So I went ahead, downloaded the Sole app, and I used the serial number on the treadmill to go ahead and connect my machine to my phone through Bluetooth. Guys, this took like 10 minutes. It was a super easy process. When you purchase a treadmill, so let's say you purchase the ST90, you go ahead and get a free membership to the Sole programming. I do not think Sole programming is the best out there. In fact, it's kind of down my list in terms of the programming that it offers. But if you are looking for classes beyond what the treadmill has pre-programmed on it, then it is a good kind of change of pace. Now, I did take 2 classes off of the Sole app, as well as 2 of the classes that are pre-programmed within the treadmill. The first class I took was On the Run by Claudette. It was so hard to hear, so my initial thought was like, oh, the speakers aren't very quality on this. Then I went ahead and did a run challenge by Layson. I think that's how you pronounce his name, and he was like so loud, and like I ended up having to turn the volume down. So it's definitely not a speaker issue. It's definitely just inconsistent with how the volume on the program is. So you could take some classes where honestly, I took an interval class. I was like straining to hear the instructor's call outs, and then go ahead and flip to Layson's class where I ended up having to turn the volume down. So that's kind of my first call out along with this programming. And even though this does connect through Bluetooth, it doesn't have any sort of auto trainer control. So we see that with iFit. When you go ahead and use the iFit programming, the class will automatically tell your treadmill what speed it should be at, what incline or what decline it should be at, and it's basically a hands-free experience. Not with the Sole programming. You're gonna have to go ahead and change all of your speeds and all of your inclines manually. In terms of the screen size, it was 15.6 inches. I actually felt like it looked bigger than that. My initial thoughts on this were it's closer to 20 inches, so I don't know why, but it does feel like a very large screen. It also boasts very clear graphics, and the response time on the touchscreen is pretty decent. It is Android after all, so it's definitely not as good as Apple, but I still don't have any major complaints about it. Now, even though I like how NordicTrack and iFit has auto trainer control, one thing it doesn't have is any sort of added app. So with the Sole ST90, you can go ahead and mirror apps like Netflix, YouTube, Disney Plus, Hulu. So many apps available to the screen. So let's say you want to go ahead and watch Gentleman or whatever Netflix show you're binging, you can go ahead and mirror that onto the screen. Follow along as you walk, as you run, which I do really like. We don't see that a lot with treadmills. Bowflex does that function, but Echelon, NordicTrack, a ton of others that we review here don't offer that function. Now, one common complaint with Sole treadmills in general that I see a lot online is the way that their jump buttons are set up. So they're kind of set up into weird increments. It's also something I don't totally love. The other thing I didn't totally love, and this is honestly just my personal opinion, okay? And it's probably because I'm just used to how the Sole F93 is set up, but I don't like the toggle design. It's easy to use, but especially when I was taking classes and we were changing speeds a lot, we were doing like a speed play run, then I felt like I was paying more attention to the toggle and making sure I was at the right speed and the right increments than I was to my actual run or the actual class. So for whatever reason, I just didn't love the quick jump buttons, and I also didn't love the toggle design, but that's just my personal opinion, and really there's nothing wrong with it. The speeds go from 0.05 all the way up to 12 miles per hour, and guys, this was a really well-cushioned deck to run on. I love the slatted design. It felt incredibly comfortable to run on. Now, it did feel more cushioned than something like the Assault Runner Pro, so if you're used to running on a manual treadmill, this does feel different, but it also doesn't feel like something like the Nordic Track where it's a super cushioned belt deck. Like this was almost the combination of the two. And honestly, probably one of my favorite belt decks I've ever run on. In terms of incline, it goes up to 15%. And I don't know why. I've gone on many treadmills that go up to 15%. I've tested out all of them. I felt like I was so high on this treadmill. It's probably because the belt deck sits up a little higher off the ground than what I'm typically used to. So when I went up to that 15% grade, I just felt like so incredibly high, but it worked well, it worked quick, and it was super quiet as it transitioned to that incline. Now, one thing that is unique about this treadmill is its motor. It has a 2.0 HP AC. Now, AC is typically used on commercial treadmills. You don't see a lot of AC motors used on residential treadmills. You typically see a DC motor. So this is definitely a powerful motor that can keep up with lots of speed. Another thing that I really liked about this is you can go ahead and disengage the motor from this treadmill and use it like a manual treadmill. All you have to do is click free mode. Now, a couple things to know about this. This is more of like a sled push than a manual treadmill. I had a really hard time getting that deck to continuously going. In order to start it, I went ahead and raised the incline to 1 just to get a little bit of traction with it, but it's not something that you can continuously run on. It's definitely more like the Zebix ST9000 where I'm like pushing it in like a sled mode versus something like the Assault Runner Pro where I'm just running on it as a manual treadmill. And like I said, I went ahead and started this on an incline when I used it in the free mode or the manual mode. It doesn't go up to the full 15 levels of incline, but it does go up to 8 levels of incline when you use it on that manual mode. The running surface on this is 20 by 60 inches. And again, one of my favorite treadmills that I've ever run on in terms of cushioning, in terms of how it felt while I was running. It ended up being a little bouncy. It ended up being really fun. And I really enjoyed actually running on this treadmill. So I do think if you are looking for something that is quality to run on, this is one of the best ones. If you are looking for good programming, I'd probably point you someplace else. Okay, so here comes my biggest call out to this. This thing is so heavy. It's 326 pounds, and you feel every bit of that while you move it around. I couldn't lift it myself. I do feel like I'm decent at deadlifting. I can move almost every other treadmill in here around easily. Not the case with this one. And in fact, it's not just me. I mean, so many people have tried to move this around the garage, and we've all come up with the fact that 1, it is ridiculously heavy, 326 pounds, and 2, it doesn't have a handlebar. So I get the idea that they probably didn't put a handlebar on because maybe they're like, hey, this is stupid heavy, don't move this around. But for us or for you, if you're having to move it around at all, like there is no good place to grab, and it just makes it incredibly annoying and incredibly cumbersome to move this thing around. Okay, so I couldn't move this treadmill myself. I did want to go ahead and bring somebody in who did move it. He is trying to beat Coop in his deadlift, but he's not there yet. Welcome, Brandon. Okay, so Brandon, what is your max deadlift? Don't like inflate it.
What's Coop's right now? It's 1 pound heavier than his.
Okay, so heavy, right?
Yeah.
Give us your experience on moving this treadmill.
God awful. It does not fold, as you've probably already heard. There's no freaking handlebar on this thing whatsoever, like normal treadmills have. And yeah, the angle that you're supposed to move it in is like 13 degrees or something dumb like that.
So you're essentially having to like carry it.
Yeah, you're
like
the
that.
Hunchback of Notre Dame freaking moving something, you know? So what we've been finding ourselves in moving this thing is like moving past the point of where the wheels actually are helpful and rolling it across this belt.
Using the belt deck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is not ideal.
How it's intended.
No.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Brandon. In terms of like comfort features, this does not fold up. So again, just makes it harder to move around. Would not say this is a portable machine in any sense of the word. It also does have fans with it. Guys, these fans are a joke. They literally did nothing for me. I'm not the only one who said that. You look up like any review online that's like ST90 fans and everybody's like, yeah, this is garbage. They do not work at all. But to make up for that, they do have a wireless charging station on the treadmill. I always appreciate that about Sole treadmills is most of them come with a wireless charging station for your phone. I think that's incredibly smart, especially since you're using your phone to mirror the apps onto the screen. The weight capacity on this is 400 pounds, so well above industry standard at that 300 pounds. I did mention the step-up height briefly, but it is 12 inches. That is a lot higher than we typically see. Usually we see around 8 inches. So that is something to consider if you are worried about somebody using it with like mobility issues or balance issues. The last thing I did notice, and something that I did want to call out, although it didn't bother me, the screen does shake a little bit while I was running. I wasn't the only one who found that or had that experience. A lot of people online also kind of said that the screen shook as they were using it. So if that's something that would bother you, I think that, maybe steer clear, especially since this is a ridiculously expensive machine. But I don't think it impacts the overall sturdiness of it. It just was a little annoying. Okay guys, so the big question, right? How much does a machine like this cost? $3,999. This is by far one of the most expensive machines that I've ever seen, ever reviewed. Do I think it is worth it? Probably not. I mean, $4,000 for a really good cushioned deck. I mean, that's like the big selling point in my mind to this machine. You also have freeboard, which I do appreciate. I do really like, but overall, I wish the programming was better, and I wish there were an easier way to move this around. I mean, I move around a ton of manual treadmills. I move around a ton of motorized treadmills. Surely there is a way to make this a little easier to move around. But overall, I mean, I think that if you are somebody looking for a quality running deck and you are a serious runner, you have to try this out because it feels so nice to run on. But if you're looking for good programming, if you're looking for a portable design, I mean, you've got to look elsewhere. All right, guys, that's it for me. Let us know in the comments what you think about the ST90. Do you think it is worth that $4,000 price point? Let us know your thoughts. This has been Lindsay with Garage Gym Reviews.